Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Challenge with John Chapman. I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, and we are endeavoring to bring religion and politics back to the dining room table of discussion. It's good to have you with us. Hope you can go find us. Hope you can share us. You can come follow us over on Rumble. You can find us on Facebook. You can go over to YouTube and type in The Challenge with John Chapman, The Challenge Podcast with John Chapman. Find us there. And also a shout out, you can find out everything that the ministry is doing, including the podcast, over at whitedoveministries.net, whitedoveministries.net. You can find out what's going on there, from the men's group to the women's group to Sundays to Wednesdays, and then our Politico-Christian podcast right here today. And joining me today, author of Hope from the Ashes of January 6th and former January 6th prisoner, Leo Kelly.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, it's good to have you here. I want to do everything I can to just slide this over to your heart.
Yeah.
And I first heard you speak, for the listeners' sake here, 2 summers ago in Cedar Rapids. You were at, what was the event there in the church?
Holy Liberty Fest.
Liberty Fest.
Iowa Liberty Network puts on an event, and I think I had just got out of prison at that point.
I think it was.
Like literally days before, and the guy who was the chairman at that time, Jim Carlin, had actually reached out and communicated to me while I was in prison. He would call in and pray with me and stuff, and he said, well, you know, we really want you to be here for Liberty Fest. And I was waiting to get out of prison, and I was supposed to be out, and they weren't letting me out. And anyway, we can get into that whole story, but yeah, it was great. Good little church up there, Calvary. Anyway, I love those people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you started sharing your heart and they opened the doors for you to just doing that there.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is for everybody, but I know how it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as, well, let me start with this. I remember election night, and I remember when the news reported that suddenly Pennsylvania was shutting its polls early.
Mm-hmm.
There was an issue, and they were shutting their polls. My wife and I were sitting there watching this, and I turned to her right there, and I said, here it is. So I said to her, here it is.
Yep.
I said, it's begun. I said, the lying, the quirking, the sneaking.
Yep.
I said, it's beginning. And she said, I totally agree. This is off count. This is off the norm. And so I think that triggered throughout. And I think in a nation like ours, there's always the risk of starting to think that.
Yeah.
And so now you're going, well, wait a minute. This check comes in to your spirit, and you're like, I'm not sure about this. I don't want to be wrong about this. I want to trust the system. I wanted this, that, and the other thing. Yeah. Around our house.
It's actually harder to face the reality that there could be a big problem.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with identifying that. So what was going on in your mind? So you end up going and tell me about how that worked. When was it you decided to go? What made you want to go out there to DC during that course?
I ought to just say, like, I have to confess this, like in 2016, I wasn't even a Trump guy. I was so cynical.
Oh, wait a minute. If I would have known that, I never would have. No, I'm just kidding.
Because I was just done with politics. And there's no excuse for that. You know, as an American, I think you have a God-given opportunity, but also responsibility to participate. It's, you know, the Bible says it's the government's God's servant to do you good. Well, if you're a voter, you are the government, which means you're God's servant to do other Christians good. So, but that's not where I was in 2016, when Trump beat Hillary. Thought that he was just a loudmouth New Yorker. I had watched Obama and Bush govern, and kind of the net effect of both presidencies was the same, in my opinion. The government was getting bigger and bigger, and liberties got smaller and smaller. We kept getting into these wars that at the time we started them, they sounded great, but then we seemed to be forgetting what we were fighting for. And so anyway, I watched Trump govern for his first term, and I thought, oh, okay, all right. You know, this guy's not perfect, but he's fighting for America. And it also dawned on me how evil and just depraved the darkness of the left is. Like, I'm like, oh, I've read my history. I know what Russia went through, and just the horribleness of communism taking over there. And I've read history in China and how that went, and the French Revolution, the Jacobins before all that stuff. Like, I mean, I think Billy Graham was famously quoted as saying, communism is Satan's religion. I don't know if he actually said that, but I think I saw it on a button somewhere.
No matter who said it, I would believe it. But
yeah, I mean, but what it really does, whether you call it communism or socialism or whatever that manifestation of government is, it steals, it kills, and it destroys. It destroys culture. It produces widespread, people died by the tens of millions in Russia and China when that ideology took over. So I started looking at that. I saw Trump governing in his first term, said, okay, this guy's, he at least loves my nation. He's contending for us. He's fighting for the ideal that government is for the purpose of securing the rights that are God-given, that are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's not perfect, not doing it exactly how I would do it, but I said, all right, this is a step in the right direction. And the alternative is like, we're dead, so it's like, what am I going to do? Throw a fit about like who God gave me to fight the battle? Like, I mean, I can fight those battles in primaries and stuff, but that's just not, opportunity wasn't given to me. Well, yeah, 2020, I voted for Trump, and just like you described on election night, was just flabbergasted by, I went to bed when he was way ahead and getting further ahead. And I just thought, oh, well, great. All right, we'll have another 4 years to fight this out. And then woke up the next morning and I went to Bible study at my brother-in-law's house, and he told me, well, Leo, they're stealing the election from him. And I said, well, they can't do that. This is America. We don't do that here. Right. And
yeah, right. Yeah. We're God's people.
Yeah, sure enough. Just so happened to be that in every one of the swing states, Biden overnight, when they closed the polls, got just enough votes to put him ahead. Yeah. Weird. That's never happened before. Surely it's just a coincidence, right? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was my background. And then what got me to go out to the January 6th rally was I actually did a deep dive. I'm a homeschool kid, and my mom taught me growing up that the best way to learn is to look at original source information. If you want to learn about something, you got so I tuned into like the legislature in Michigan had a subcommittee that was investigating the election, and they would call in witnesses from Wayne County, Detroit. And I just listened to the testimony. These are poll workers that work there, and they said, we're telling what happened. And just these horrible things about like the ballots that weren't signed and the ballots that were, just came out of nowhere. And it wasn't just there. It was Fulton County, Georgia, which is where they just had the big raid. And that's where Atlanta is. And the same thing in Philadelphia and Maricopa County, which is where Phoenix is. And like story after story after story. And I was like, oh, wow, they actually did, like, this election was totally stolen. Mm. I don't know what I can do about that. But the president's calling this rally on January 6th called Stop the Steal. I think I'm going to go out to that. And I partnered up with another group. Or I was just going to look them up when I got there. But there was this group that was attached to that event that had set up a prayer event that was called the Jericho March. And it was really cool. Like we were going to literally march around the Capitol 7 times on January 6th, praying, and just, the Joshua style. People had their shofars and they were blowing the trumpets and stuff. And that's what I thought the day was going to be. I thought it was just going to be kind of like, go listen to the president speak and pray for the country and demonstrate in front of the Capitol. And, hopefully the government will listen to us.
If the walls crumble, it worked.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Was there any point between when you went out for January 6th, was there any point where you went, liberals say that too, right? So George W. Bush, right? It comes down to hanging chads,
right?
If you'll recall.
Yep.
And Al Gore is just losing his mind over this.
Right.
Was there any part of you that the second side of that showed up before you went to January 6th and went, well, wait a minute. I don't want to be like when they go, oh, the election was stolen.
Well, I mean, I remember. So, yeah, I kind of remember thinking through some of that and going back to that 2000 election, right? When Bush Gore, and I did not a deep dive into that, but just enough. I looked into it, and I follow like Sidney Powell was an attorney that former federal prosecutor, and she wrote a book on the Enron scandal. She's really just brilliant, wonderful woman, fighter for liberty, all this stuff. But she had done some research, as I remember, on the 2000 election as well. And if I'm remembering that it was her, I think it's her conclusion, but she said basically, oh yeah, Bush's brother was governor of Florida, and he basically just tipped the scales and gave him the election. And right.
So in my mind,
I kind of just came awake to the reality like, oh, duh. They've probably just been doing this for years and I've just been numb to it.
But something seemed different. Like you, I'm like this. Like, well,
Yeah.
every time somebody loses, it goes, oh, it's because of you, it's because of them. There was this, that, and the other. But was there something different about this one for you that
Well,
went, you know what, I'm going out there.
Yeah,
I want to see what this is
what
about.
felt really different for me was that it felt to me like the nation had realigned around, like I had come to the conclusion that like, oh, people have probably just been trying to out cheat each other in whatever ways
Yeah,
they can
right.
get away with, just
Yeah.
like people do, like, right?
Yeah,
People,
yeah.
power and politics. It's been throughout world history. It's like that people fight for power. What a big surprise, right?
True. Right.
So, but what disturbed me about this was that I felt like it was very blatant and very widespread, and it was a moment that our country was having to decide who we wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
is the Declaration of Independence says the purpose for government is to secure these rights, and the rights are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the rights are not given by government; they are given by the Creator.
Yes.
But the government's role is to secure, like the Creator instituted government, the institution to secure those rights. The government's His servant to do us good. So I looked at the threat and just how like we had come to a point where it wasn't like you couldn't just kick the can down the road anymore. It was time to like face the reality, like, oh, if we don't clean this up now and turn it around, we're lost. Our government will it'll just totally have degenerated into a power game.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you can't manipulate it and get it to do policies the way you want them to necessarily, but like America's gone at that point. We've surrendered who we are, and we've surrendered the hill that God gave us to defend.
Right.
And so I felt it was like a responsibility, as like, just, it is a good thing. The government that was instituted in the nation, the covenant that bound us together in the Declaration of Independence, is worth defending. It's a treasure that God gave our forefathers, and He gave us the responsibility to protect it. And so that's, like when you're going to a protest, you don't feel like you're really doing much of anything. You're just standing around waving a flag.
Right, unless you're in Minneapolis.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true. Yeah. but it's an act of faith too, and it's voting is an act of faith. Like these, so if you don't know what to do, what you should do is ask God, okay, well, what does it look like for me to be faithful in this moment? And how can I just align myself with that? And then trust that, he's able. He doesn't need much.
Right.
But He needs us.
You make a good point there that when you do that, every act that you do is by faith.
Yeah.
Which also includes that you don't necessarily get what we would perceive as a win or loss on the other side. Yeah. By faith actually doesn't determine that in the here and now, I don't think.
Exactly.
And I think that was said very well at the Iowa Freedom
Liberty Fest.
Yep. Sorry, I want to get that right. Liberty Fest.
All good.
2 Saturdays ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was said very well by the candidates too, the interviews and things like that. They're saying, hey, you do it because you believe in your heart God's asking you to do that.
Yeah.
And unbelievers don't understand that. And I would also say conservatives who are unbelievers don't understand that.
Very true.
And so how do you come from them? Where do you stand on that? I mean, let me ask it this way. What is the driving force in you aside from being homeschooled?
Yeah.
Which is a category of people who generally take a greater interest now in history, the Constitution, things like that. But is there a greater driving force in you, even from the general upbringing?
Yeah.
Would you say?
I mean, for me, it's the Holy Spirit. I mean, like God animates me. When I look at Jesus, I see the only one who has a solution for the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, He is just the only way that things can work. He's the only one that could be given power and have it not corrupt Him. He's the only one that could receive all of that evil and let it die with Him, right, and then rise up and offer life in exchange for that. Yeah. And just say, you just got to come over to my side. You got to give up your own way. And so when I see that, that's like just the vision of who He is and the wholeness of what it is for Him to be like king and actually ruling, and the opportunity that He's given me as to like do my part in His kingdom for right now.
Yeah.
Like just the goodness of who He is good enough for me to bet my life on that. And just to say, man, if I could just like get a piece of that guy in that kingdom and be a part of that, I really would. I'll lose all that. What what is really anything we have here in comparison to that? Is nothing. We're going to die anyway. Who cares?
Right. No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That we would lose our souls to try to obtain the world
Yeah.
is a huge mistake.
It's a horrible trade. Yeah.
It is.
You don't even get the world.
No, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you believe in salvation,
yeah,
and fundamentally salvation is simply believing
Mhm.
that there's nothing that you could do to attain or atone for the sins that we are.
Right.
And when I say the sins that we are, it just includes the nature. I'm just talking about our sin nature.
Yeah.
It's just nothing. And you have a whole category of people that that goes, well, I think I'm good enough. And this is the classic argument, it's like, well, I think I've done enough things to get to heaven. And others like, well, I don't know one way or the other. So I'm just going to believe that maybe there isn't God or he'll figure it out on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way to know this. And I think to me, there's a couple different categories of people in politics as a result of this too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both Democrats, Republicans, and independents.
Right. Yep.
All in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you say the Holy Spirit's your driving force,
Mm-hmm.
right,
Yeah.
in this,
Mm-hmm.
so it would, right.
There's so much there, isn't there?
There is. And we can unpackage anything that way. So I'm just going to take as right now, what's inside of you is going, there's something more here.
Yeah.
Because even Democrats go, well, the Constitution says it. The Constitution says it. And most of them are uneducated on this. And that's not an accusation, because I have been up to the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And before I went, at this age, it's time for me to know what I believe.
Yeah.
It's the same with scriptures. If you're a Christian, it's just like,
you got to know it.
You're right. Do you read the Bible? Not so much. You're going to want to know what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
By digging in.
You
Otherwise,
know
the enemy's going to throw you around like a hockey puck in that ring.
Yep.
And the same is true today. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't hold that against anybody who's ignorant of the Constitution, but for somebody who begins to learn of the Constitution, that they have that confidence. But now you've got people that's like, wait a minute, this Constitution was made for a group of people that trust in an almighty sovereign is
Yep.
the word very commonly used in the Constitution.
Yep.
And the forefathers use that term
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
But now you've got other categories of people. You've got Muslims.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've got unbelievers, the famous atheist group that just believe in themselves. They don't understand that they believe they're God.
Yep.
And yet you've got something else driving you that takes you down there. But now you're coming up against the Constitution, which is acting in force against you, and you weren't trying to be against it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about that.
Well, what comes to mind when you're talking through all of these issues is that's kind of like, it's tied to the core of American identity. Like before 1776, before we were even anything but a bunch of colonies, we were hit by this move of God, the First Great Awakening in the 1740s. And this is where Whitefield was preaching all over the colonies. It's tens of thousands of people. And the Wesley boys, John and Charles Wesley, were over across the pond in England. And it was just, powerful move of God. And Jonathan Edwards came out of that. And one of the interesting things I always remember from it is, if you read the history, not everybody became Christian, but the culture was so influenced by Christians. So you had a guy like Ben Franklin, who was very good friends with George Whitefield. Franklin was very famously one of our founders, huge influence on the country, but never surrendered his life to Jesus. But he was highly influenced by one of the, with these preachers that was so influential in his day. And the same type of deal with the Thomas Jefferson. Like, so we have this government that has room for non-Christians in it, but it is undeniable that it came out of a move of God, a people that were affected by a move of God. And so it is very much a Christian idea that the government is for the purpose of securing those God-given rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that's why Islam doesn't work here. Like, you can be a Muslim and live here. We can, make a place for you. But you cannot, if you impose Muslim beliefs on our government fundamentally becomes something that it never was meant to be. So America is conquered if we surrender to that, because the Islamic form of government is that you take over and you dominate the people that don't believe like you. They have to pay their poll tax and they have to do all this other stuff. So the purpose there is to dominate and control, whereas the purpose of the Christian form of government is not to force everyone to be Christian. It is to honor God's purpose to allow people to have the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness secured. And the government can't force you to do it right. Look at where we are right now.
Yes.
A lot of our problems are directly tied to the gross misuse of liberty.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Absolutely.
we've made a mess out of this place by sin, you know, just screwing up constantly.
Absolutely.
So,
and it's interesting because Abraham Lincoln said, if this nation is to be destroyed, if it's to be overcome, it's going to happen from within. Some of the wisest words ever to be stated by a president.
Yep.
And I think we're seeing that now. And yet here we are. And it's not that, you know, like I jump up and down and go, you know, I'm learning to love this country. Actually, it's been an internal conflict sometimes in my own home because I've got zealous patriots there where I'm like, look, if we're not paying attention to the kingdom, we're going to miss the point of this. Yeah. Well, at the same time, as it circles back around, you go, no, this thing is what works for us. And I've been to third world nations where Christianity is not lawful, it's not allowed, or anything like that. Yep. And so how do you stack being a patriot? Yeah. But living accordant with the ordinances of God, which is the Holy Spirit governing in you, but now standing up for a constitution. Here's the trick part of this question. Yeah. How do you stand up for a constitution without denying the authority of God's kingdom in your life and still do what's right?
Right. So what I had to do, I was just trying to think where to take this. So when I was arrested for January 6th and, you know, I hadn't done anything violent and I actually felt like, you know, I don't really deserve this. But on the other hand, did I have any right? You know, I didn't have permission to be in that building. Okay. Okay, I'm going back and forth here, and there's a lot of issues that are tied to that. But like basically the core of your question is, well, the government was coming after me. And like, how do I deal with that as a Christian? Right. And what I had to do is I had to recognize where I was at and the power that God had given me, the authority that he had given me was none as far as government was concerned. So I had to humble myself and I had to say, well, I follow Jesus. Jesus went to the cross. He was the rightful king. He is the rightful king. Yeah. He took that. Whatever injustice happened to him is far worse than what is being done to me or anything that will be done to me. Like, because, you know, I at least deserve something to happen to me. I've sinned a little bit at least, and I deserve some punishment for that. Right. But Jesus was perfect, and I'm claiming I follow Jesus. Right. So what I had to do was just decide right up front at the beginning of the whole process was like, well, this is going to be really hard, but I am going to love my enemies. I'm going to pray for those who persecute me. You know, I prayed for the prosecutors. I prayed for the judge. I prayed, you know, like, I mean, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to, you know, confess to something that I didn't do. I'm not, you know, like, but what that set me on the path down was like, I just felt like I couldn't hit back against injustice. And I had to just wait for God and trust that, like, because I believe he does give, you know, if I would have had a position in the government or had, you know, if I was a senator or something like, well, and I was being persecuted, well, then that would have maybe given me legitimate God-given authority to use some force to fight back. Right. But because of what I had to trust that, like, I was going to overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of my testimony. Yeah. And the way it worked out is like, it was a long, hard journey and it's still playing out. But like now people want to hear from me and I get to have an influence and my voice gets to have a disproportionately larger impact on who's, you know, going to be chosen in our governor race and in our, you know, various House of Representatives and Senate races, all things like that. So like, by going through this and being faithful, God kept me at peace. He shaped me. He formed me. I became I went through an initiation sort of, but then he also like, you know, you invited me on this podcast because like of no other reason that I went through this. You know, I'm just a regular guy, but going through the journey and walking it with God means I'm not quite a regular guy. He's like made me, you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I find it one of the things that's interesting to me, and as I get older, I've got kids, I've got grandkids, and as I get older, one of the things I realize is there's two options you have. It's either to give up, give it all up for loss, because it gets tiring. After a while, it gets really tiring. Yep. And the older you get, you have to pick up you have to go to the word. You have to go, nope, this race isn't done. And I want to be found faithful all the way to the end.
Not today, Satan.
Yeah, right, right. Yep. And along with that, when you see this level come up, and I think we're living in I don't think it's unique in the sense that other places in the world have never experienced this. I'm always very careful about that. When you've done some world travels, you know, C.S. Lewis said, let us be very careful about saying that our particular risk as a world order is the greatest risk, because for them it was the introduction of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Right. So that was brand new for them.
Yep.
And so I never, when somebody says to me, John, you're called, man, for such a time as this. Yeah, well, such a time as this happened several times over the last couple thousands of years.
It's been happening since Jesus, right?
Exactly.
At least our era. Yeah.
And I want to be faithful in my time as this. Do you think the United States, based on what you've gone through, and feel free to share as much of that as you'd like, based on what you've gone through, going down to the Capitol, trying to show support, trying to be an American citizen in the way where you're trying to be present and not just a mouth talking to everybody else with a hood over your head.
Yeah.
You're going down there, and then before you know it, you're inside. It feels a little weird. Yeah. And many people have seen the videos. I've seen several different things in regards to this.
Yeah.
And there's some shows of violence, and then there's other angles where it's just like, man, this just looks like people going into church and then getting ready to come back out.
Right.
And it's fully that way.
Yep.
So then something, I can't remember the name of one of the members of our congregations loaned us a video of this in regards to this, what was going, just the other side of it, families and people that were being arrested then afterwards and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to lie, as the old man with the gray hair, all I want to do is clean my cig and go, is this it? In all seriousness, sit there and go, Lord, are we there? Is this country there? Is this an example of that? And worse yet, going on in me does it no longer matter which party's in power? That this kind of infection within power, are we past tip saving? Have we taken the puncture on the Titanic and this bad boy is just going down no matter what? I have some thoughts about that, but I'm curious because you were right there in the thick. Yeah. And the things are going on in your heart. Where do you think we are as a nation after going through what you have, and the difference between what's fair to you and what's just? And I think you said it very well. You're like, well, it's not like I haven't sinned in my life. Yeah. And I think for a Christian, that's the correct stance, because you can't go, well, I can't say God isn't being just in some way. Yeah. Even though maybe it doesn't feel fair. Yeah. But do you feel like it's given you some sight on where we're at as a country? And not to be hopeless, but what role we would be in our fight in it now.
Well, I mean, that's the title of the book, is Hope from the Ashes of Jan 6, right? Because just, I think collectively as a nation, what most people looked at January 6th as, they just saw it, and both right, the left was obviously outraged, and that was stoked by.
They're always outraged. They're just outraged all the time. It's their God.
It must be hard. It must be hard to be a left winger, because you're just mad all the time.
I just want to give them vitamin C and vitamin D and tell them it's going to be okay.
Come on, guys. It's going to be okay. So, but anyway, that's the title of the book, is Hope. And the reason why I believe there's hope is because we never had a chance anyway. We were just a bunch of colonies going up against the most powerful nation in the world. And the first flag we flew was Appeal to Heaven, because we knew that we couldn't win on our own, right? The Appeal to Heaven was about God, we're being treated unjustly. This isn't what government is supposed to be doing to us. What are we supposed to do here? Can you please help us? And there is hope for America under the banner of Jesus, and under the hope of that he saves, and he does, and he has. We in this nation, if you read the history of different moves of God in this nation, they happen all the time. And across denominations, there's renewal in mainline, big, traditional denominations. There's the Holy Spirit people at the Azusa streets and all of that stuff. And God moves, and he does it his way. And he's always I just think about, He's always prepared us for the moments, and he's always put us in a place where we are gonna we're just not going to endure unless the next phase of our, let's call it an initiation as a nation, cannot be reached without God. And we're there again. We have disaster. We kind of got the idea that we're so powerful, all we got to do is maintain power, and we can do this. And then what happened? Both of our political parties became totally corrupt. Yeah. It turned out they were both fighting for the same team, and that wasn't God's team. Right. And so, but now look at where we're at. We're Trump, a lot of people have trouble with with him, like on the Christian side, especially because he's kind of mean and he's abrasive and he does things. But you know what George Bush could never do and Ronald Reagan could never do is get judges in there that undid Roe v. Wade.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
like,
correct. That's correct.
So whatever you think about the guy, like you have to admit that he's being used by God. Like there's God, like lives are being saved. Like we are taking a step back towards liberty. But this is where we go wrong as a nation is there's this messianic complex with Trump that a lot of people on the right have, where good, now that Trump's here, I don't have a responsibility to do. Now I can just go and, live my own life. But the only way that this works as a nation is if we have a godly people, or at least a people who recognize that the godly people are the ones who should be in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Frequently on this show, the quote is that the greatest wrong going on in government is that it's called the lust for power.
Yeah.
And it seems to be very difficult for anybody to avoid that temptation.
Yep.
It's difficult for any single human to avoid that temptation.
Yeah.
Self-righteousness. I got to be right. I got to be right. I got to be at the top. Then we'll get all this fixed.
Yeah.
Jesus is already sitting at the right hand of the Father.
Right.
And the idea of sovereignty sometimes gets uncomfortable for us because we don't get to share the glory. And God gets all the glory. And I think you're nailing so many spots on this. And yet we do have an important role. So you talk about the Trump complex. And I think you're correct. I know you're correct when you say, and it doesn't matter whether I think you're correct or not. By the way, freedom of speech. You tell me whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's correct, right? But what's so good about that is I think we as believers, we're going to lose steam if we keep going. It's going to be that guy.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Because when we talk about we the people, I've never thought about this before. We took the class. Mr. Willman, what was the class? I know you weren't able to be for all those. What was that class we were taking? Constitutional Christianity or what was I know. My bad. I'm sorry.
David Barton does a great one. Wall builders. Those guys are great.
Wall builders. It's the course they put on.
Yep.
Biblical citizenship.
Biblical citizenship. Yep.
I love those guys. And we ran that. The church ran that on Wednesday nights. It was fantastic. I was in tears watching the first video.
Wow. No.
That's how coming to understand the man is the king of his own property and understand search and seizure. I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, there's tears in my eyes. We keep Kleenexes in our church for that very reason. Every now and then somebody's repenting. They got to have some Kleenex.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just need to blow their nose because they got a cold, but we keep them out there. And, but that's going on and you're understanding what this is. And the thing of it is when people say, well, you need to submit to the government because God has provided that in chapter 13 of Romans for you. Well, guess who the government is in the United States of America that you're having to submit to? Citizens. And that's you.
Yep.
And it's not the authorization of creating rebellion, but that's why the Constitution is so amazing. That's put the burden upon us to do something toward the government when they're way out of line.
Yeah. And a perfect example of this that's kind of enshrined in our history is, we founded the country as we're the people that hold it to be self-evident. We're all created equal. We're endowed by the Creator with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Yes. Liberty. It's the government's responsibility to secure those rights, right? And like you're saying, legitimacy of government rests on consent of the governed.
Right.
But what happened, 15 years later or whatever, when we did the Constitution, and this is like the one thing that everybody hates about the Constitution, but we have to face the reality is, what did we enshrine into the law? Slavery. Right?
It was there.
So when Lincoln went to free the slaves and whatever else was going on at the time of the Civil War, that is what history has handed down to us, is like that's the main thing, and that is what we were doing was it was legal to hold slaves, but it was a total betrayal of the original pledge. Like those southern states, when their guys signed the Declaration of Independence, what did they pledge to one another? Their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. So then when it, like you said, you're talking about lust for power and things like that. Well, fast forward 15 years and the Revolutionary War is over and we think we got a little bit of a security here. And well, maybe we didn't want to give up all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, 500,000 Americans had to pay with their blood for that mistake.
Yep.
Yep. And I mean, that's that. I mean, we have high stakes here.
Yes.
You know, like with the power that God's given us, even, the mistakes we make carry grave consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you believe January 6th qualifiably was an insurrection?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, so I should just say a little bit about.
Are you sure? Because I've been watching the media and they all say it is. I've been watching high authoritative people say this was an insurrection at the highest level.
Why do you consider them to be reliable sources of information?
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, right. One of the interesting things for those who've been to Washington D.C., you'll be able to visualize this, but if not, I'll talk through it. On the day of January 6th, the President Trump was speaking at the Ellipse, and the Ellipse is between the Washington Monument and the White House.
Okay,
you've been there before?
I have not. Yeah. All over the world. I've never been to our own. I mean, shame on me.
It's a spectacular place. I mean, it's I've had a lot of bad experiences there, but I
need to go.
Yeah, I think everybody should go see it. But anyway, so there's hundreds of thousands of people gathered to hear the president speak, and he shows up late. Trump's always late, and he talks forever, goes way long in his speech. And the reason why that's important is from that point if you're walking fairly quickly, about a 45-minute walk from the Capitol building.
Okay. All right.
And if you're like kind of a more leisurely stroll and you stop and see some of the sights along the way, it's about an hour. Well, when the president got done speaking at that moment, it was right about that time that most of that violence you see on TV was happening. So the vast majority of the crowd was way far away. And that's when whoever it was that was over at the Capitol at that point was pepper spraying the cops and tearing apart the fences, breaking the windows, getting into the Capitol building, and all of that stuff. So it's not to say that there were no Trump supporters that did things wrong. I mean, there's certainly, a lot of things happened that day that certainly should not have been done. I saw a lot of people destroying property and
yep.
Like, absolutely, there's no excuse for that, and that's totally unacceptable. But it wasn't even close to an insurrection. I mean, the vast majority, I saw tens and tens of thousands of people there waving flags, singing songs like the Star Spangled Banner and Amazing Grace and YMCA, and just like, it was like kind of a state fair kind of environment. It was like people who love America and loved each other. And we're just kind of like, and then, we get to the Capitol and look up there and like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? There is pure pandemonium.
Yep.
And so then, so
when you arrived on the scene, that's what
aftermath.
I saw. You were kind of walking into the back part of the aftermath of what had begun.
Well, and it went on for several hours. Fair enough, it was kind of like, and really like, they just like, the thing that's so frustrating is, one of my friends in law enforcement, he works security in Washington, D.C. sometimes and stuff. What he said is, he's like, there's no way people would have got anywhere near there unless they wanted them to. There's just, the whole thing was like, I don't think there was some master plan that knew exactly what was going to happen, but it was set up for optics, like.
Hey, you get tickets to the Iowa Cubs came down here and your wife brings a purse that's too big, you're not getting in.
Yeah.
And it's hard and cold. You're not getting in.
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me. So.
The Iowa Cubs in Des Moines.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And all of a sudden.
I'm sorry, ma'am, that purse is too big. You may not have that in there. You might be carrying a baby bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And
that's the truth when you compare it. And this is the capital of our country, of our nation.
Yeah. And it wasn't like it was a big surprise. There was permits pulled that are verifiable. You can go look them up, like permits pulled that there was going to be tens of thousands of people there, standard crowd control stuff. It's well documented that President Trump had issued the order to authorize 10,000 National Guard troops
to protect,
just
to make sure.
And the chain of command and at the Capitol grounds goes through the Speaker of the House, and the Speaker of the House at that time, of course, is Nancy Pelosi.
Right. Great lady.
Right. Yeah. Real upstanding citizen.
Yes. And we know more about her now too, and even the involvement, just the lacks of it and all that kind of stuff that just opened up that door.
Yeah.
And yet in the midst of that, the Spirit of God was inside of you and you're going, I got to take another step here.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So my mindset when I got over there and I saw just the chaos, but what informed my decision-making at that point was I'm coming out of the COVID year, right? And all the Black Lives Matter riots that were going on and all over the country.
Yep.
Kenosha and Minneapolis and all these places. And so I looked at this and I'm like, oh, well, this is a big moment. Like something's happening here. I don't know what's happening, but like I have a chance to be an eyewitness and I don't have to have the media filter on what happened here. I can be an eyewitness.
Right.
You know, I'm going back to that research philosophy that mom taught me from homeschool, like that I applied to the election. If you want to know something, be a firsthand witness, or if you can't be a firsthand witness, like listen to other firsthand witnesses. So I thought, okay, all right, I'm just going to get up as close as I can. Now, little did I know, last time I had been there maybe 10 years before, 5 years before, something like that as a tourist. And at that time you could go right up on the porch.
Now as a citizen, before as a tourist, but now as a citizen.
Yeah. Right. But during this time, on the day of January 6th, if you just stepped onto the grounds of the Capitol, that was a trespassing. That was a crime. And then when you stepped up on the porch, that was another form of trespassing. And so I'm committing crimes all along the way and having no idea that I'm doing it.
Right. I got you.
So anyway, but like I get the chance, I'm kind of up on the porch there. And the first time I saw any cops anywhere was they were standing inside behind these broken glass windows, and there's protesters running past them and jumping out the windows. And I'm like, where are these guys coming from? Like, what is going on here? And why aren't the cops
jumping out
anything?
from the inside?
Yeah.
Coming back out.
So they're like ground level windows. So it's and these protesters had got inside, presumably by breaking the windows.
Right.
And whatever they did inside, who knows? But now they were coming out, and these police officers just kind of standing there watching them. And I'm like, well, I've never seen anything like this, but it seemed odd to me that the cops were just kind of watching it. Like, I mean, it seemed to me they would probably intervene if they thought there was something wrong going on. But, I was interested, like, man, I wonder what's happening inside the building. So, but I wasn't going to go jump through a broken window. That just didn't seem like the right thing to do. But anyway, a few minutes later, this guy opens up a door. Now, I found out later by seeing security camera footage at my trial that this was like a fire exit door. So this guy had smashed a window and reached through and pushed the fire exit door release on it.
Okay.
And so he'd open it. Now, the interesting thing is, like, there's a 30-second delay. It's U.S. Capitol building. So there's security measures. So there's a magnetic lock on this door.
Yeah.
Won't let it open when you do this to prevent exactly what this guy did.
Sure.
But the magnetic lock had been turned off. So he was able to just pop this door open immediately.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, who turned off the lock, right? It's controlled from the inside. Somebody turned off that lock. And, there's an investigator on my case, right? An FBI agent. And an FBI agent, as an investigator, his responsibility is to investigate, right? Not only with the aim of conviction, but to just figure out what happened.
Sure.
So, it's his responsibility to go figure this out.
Right.
Well, I mean, I'll let you, figure out whether or not you think an FBI agent from Washington, D.C. just chose to dive down that rabbit hole, which he didn't. So anyway, I go in this and end up following a group of protesters and end up on the Senate chamber floor. And that somebody in there said, well, you know what we should do? We should pray right now. And that was...
Boy, if that isn't an act of violence, I don't know what is.
Exactly. And I just thought, well, that was the first thing that made sense to me all day. Like, okay, yeah. I might be right about all this election fraud and everything that's wrong with the election and all that, but I can't do anything about it. Like, I'm trying my best here and I ain't changing anything.
Right.
So I'm good. All right, so a bunch of people prayed. I kind of got on my knees and just, said my own little personal prayer. And the chaos was swirling around. I couldn't even formulate like a coherent thought. It didn't feel like, so like, it wasn't some sophisticated prayer. It was just like, well, Jesus, can you come and help us? Cause we're kind of tearing ourselves apart here.
Yep.
And I'm
not sure it needs to be more sophisticated than that.
Well, I think probably simplicity, I think, is what a lot of times what God's looking for. And we're the ones that make it complicated, right?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I got done with that and something clicked inside of me and I was like, oh, okay, time to leave. So I walked out the chamber door and there's a cop standing out there and he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And he says, well, you need to get out of here. And I'm like, okay. And so I walked down the stairs and left.
So you did what you were asked to do by an officer standing right there who said, you need to get out of here.
Yeah.
And you said, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And there had actually been police officers. There was one police officer, at least one or more, in the Senate chamber while I was there. And what that guy said was basically, hey guys, just try to be respectful while you're here. And,
okay.
And that's what we were doing. I mean, like it was just a crazy crowd of people, because you get like, there was, when I was in there, like one of the guys in there is probably, you no doubt will remember him, the guy with the horns. Remember the buffalo hat and the horns, like the crazy, like, I mean,
he was duplicated down at the state of Iowa Capitol last year for the gay rebellion. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, we saw a guy like him.
I mean, whatever. Think what you want about the guy, eccentric guy, but like he became the face of the whole thing. And like I didn't even know it at the time, but like this guy's just, he's kind of, a loudmouth guy, and that's fine. But then there's this little old lady sitting in one of the chairs over here to like, so just a total, just melting mixed bag of every kind of person you can imagine is just like this situation. It was just nothing like anything I mean, of course, it's January 6th. I mean, there's a reason it's a famous event. Like there's just nothing like it have I ever been a part of. It's just crazy.
One of the things that's interesting to me about this and the sensation of that, I can't imagine what it would have been like to be present in the way that you were. And then, am I understanding correctly, is that at some point you made your way home?
Yep.
But it was after this that then you were investigated.
Yeah. So I went back to my hotel after
that. A
day
later, a month later?
It was about I think maybe 2 weeks later. And the interesting thing was I knew a guy who worked in federal law enforcement, and he's a good friend of mine. And he called me one day and he said, from my hometown, and he said, "Well, Leo, I got some bad news for you. You're getting arrested, buddy." Because I had called him and just told him about January. Like, I'm like, dude, I don't even know how to interpret this. Like, but here's what happened, and he didn't know what to do. And he's like, well, whatever. But he calls me one day. He's like, "Hey, you're going to get arrested, Leo. Good news is I talked, the FBI agent on your case. He's, seems like a decent guy, and you don't have any violent charges. You got no violence history. So we're going to, arrange a situation where you can just self-surrender down at the courthouse. That way you don't have to spend a night in jail, anything like that." Well, the FBI agent on my case double-crossed him and did not do that. He waited to arrest me on a federal holiday, which was Martin Luther King Day. So this is about 2 weeks after January 6th now. And so they came to my workplace, arrested me, threw me in jail for the night, Lynn County Jail. And I had to get arraigned the next morning. What they decided, that this was like a blessing from God, that they decided that I could be released under supervision until trial. So I got to live, it took 2.5 years to go to trial after that. But I got to live a semi-normal life. I went to work every day. I had to wear an ankle monitor for a few weeks, but then they agreed to take that off because there was, it was the wrong thing to do or whatever. But eventually got to go to trial, like after living that, like with it hanging over my head. Like I had to surrender my passport and all this stuff. Like if you, one comparison, like this is the whole.
Oh, you had to surrender your passport so you didn't flee.
Yeah.
Because we're all trying to get to Mexico.
Right. Exactly. But one of the things that's just awful about the way that it's not so much that like everything was really so bad that they did to the J6ers. It's that it's how different they targeted us and were so mean to us. And then when somebody with a left-wing political persuasion does something wrong, they won't do that. Like Don Lemon is famous for going into this church in Minneapolis a few weeks ago, and interrupting the service, and it's just a obvious violation of the law. You can't do that. I mean, it's the FACE Act, I think it's called. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but whatever. I mean, but as a J6er, I kind of like monitor what's going on with him, and he's got similar charges to me, but he's got, the judge he has permission to travel to France, and doesn't have any supervision conditions. And like, it's just, we have equal justice under the law in America, right? Except
on paper,
in practice, it's totally invalidated by our judges.
Right.
So it's just so frustrating, but God will God brings justice out of this stuff, like that's it's, I just hate to complain about it because God has been so faithful to me. The Bible says he keeps in perfect peace those whose minds are set on him. Well, if your mind is set on him, you don't get to set your mind on whatever's unfair or whatever's unjust or whatever. And I have to, reel myself back in and like just realign with, set my eyes on Jesus. And he's the king. He's the guy that suffered for this. What happened to him was worse than what happened to me. He's the one with the power to overcome death. Well, if he can beat death, he can certainly beat whatever I'm facing. So that
fundamentally, when we talk about judges laying out difference, I mean, one, you have a right to a speedy trial. 2 years is not speedy.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. And one of the things that's hard for me is to look at the things that are obviously incorrect. And when I say incorrect, we are just going against now what we are generally guaranteed.
Yeah.
If it's even President Trump going, hey, we're gonna go past all the safety measures. We're gonna accelerate shots for all people.
Mm.
Flag.
Mhm.
It stunk to me like Pennsylvania. And that's nothing against him. I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to say here, it doesn't matter who's in power. Christians have an obligation to have the discernment of the Holy Spirit inside of them.
Yes.
They're going, you know what? That's not constitutional. You know what? That's not for us. And guess what? Now, he didn't force it, didn't mandate it. And I always say that because that, in fact, was the case. But he brags only 1 month before this last election about how many lives he saved for the program, for Warp Speed,
Right.
on a national interview. And I'm going, yep, still not settled in my heart about that.
Yep.
However,
Yep.
It was the next president who expressed himself by coming to the American people after year one and saying, our patience is growing thin for you people who are not vaxxing. Now, I have
Yeah.
seen such speeches by Stalin.
Yep.
And actually, us replaying that speech on this podcast banned us from TikTok forever,
Wow.
just by playing the speech and then saying, "Does anybody see what's going on
Yeah.
here?" That was it. We were exited and never to use that platform again.
Wow.
So
Wow.
when we talk
Mhm.
about these types of injustice, we talk about injustice, we talk about fairness. God is the only one who's just. And if we're okay with sovereignty, then we can also understand what things that come after us that don't.
Yeah.
But at one point, are we as Christians sitting back and just letting the devil have the reins?
Yeah.
Because everybody else is the one crying unjust, unjust, unjust. Like
Yeah.
Minneapolis, for example. Everybody's screaming and crying in there.
Yeah.
What do you think fundamentally? You got some Supreme Court justices that are ruling for Trump stuff. You've got some Supreme Court justices that are ruling against. What's going on with mankind that the law can be so broadly interpreted via the Constitution?
Well, one of the things, yeah, here's, yeah, that's
that we say,
yeah.
hey, it's parties. It's a matter of who's in
it's a matter of parties. Like what the way our government is set up is that the judges have no authority to make law.
Correct.
They can only interpret the law.
Yep.
And human nature being what it is, of course, that grates against people, and like they want to have more influence than what they are lawfully given.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you, like, one of the things when I was searching for an attorney, my trial is in Washington, D.C. And I talked to between 10 and 20 attorneys through the process, like big firms, small firms, a lot, old attorneys, young attorneys, all different types. And I asked them all about, like, what about constitutional defense strategies? Speedy trial. What about right to free exercise of religion? What about the right to equal justice under the law? There was a guy standing right next to me in the Senate chamber when I was praying, left-wing journalist named Luke Mogelson for the New Yorker. I was charged with 6, 7, 8 crimes. He wasn't even charged. So anyway, be that as it may, like,
Mr. Willman, I need an ice pack. I'm going to need an ice pack soon.
The point being, like, I felt like I had an argument, a constitutional argument to equal justice under the law that,
Sure.
Hey, listen, like, this isn't fair.
Yep.
But every single attorney gave me some variation of the same reply. I mean, they were like, well, Leo, I'll, whatever you want to pay me to argue, I'll argue for you. No problem. I get paid by the hour. But I'm going to advise you against doing any constitutional arguments. Because you're going to lose in Washington, D.C. That's not, the Constitution is not going to help you here.
2 summers ago, when I first heard you speak and you were being interviewed, you made that statement.
Yeah.
My blood has not stopped boiling.
Yeah.
Since, when I say that, I just mean in where righteousness no longer seems to rule in the hearts of people based on this is rote law. We are obligated to it. We need to do this.
Yeah.
And our nation has floated.
Yeah.
From this.
Yeah.
Personally, I believe it's because the church is floating.
I agree.
And when the church floats, then it preaches a message that might be a news that is good, but it's not the good news that saves us from our evil nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in that floating, people can, it's just, there's no more set idealism for that. Personally, I think that creates, I think it's creating a different kind of Christian, maybe, in modern society. I would say this overall experience, let's see, how long ago was this? 5 years officially now?
Yeah, just about 5 years ago. Yep.
Would you say one hour before you walked into that Capitol versus the hour you walked out of federal prison,
Mm-hmm.
you are closer or farther from your Savior?
Oh, much closer, hands down. I mean, that's the advantage and the promise of the gospel is that like it doesn't matter what happens to you anymore because you belong to, like, I'm the property of Jesus Christ and nobody can touch me. Nobody can snatch me out of his hand,
Right.
as he says, right? Like,
Yep.
So no matter what, if you choose to walk in faith, I chose to walk in faith and just to say, okay, I'm doing this God's way. I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to, whatever. It's going to be hard, suffering, all of that. But because of that, I could access the promise that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose, right?
Yes.
So although it was a horrible experience, wouldn't wish it on anybody, prison's awful, like all that, it did work together for good for me because I became a man that could I mean, Navy SEAL training is difficult, right? For a reason, because we're trying to make men who are strong, who can overcome serious obstacles and things like that. Well, that's what your suffering is. That's how it can benefit you. Whatever it is, whatever suffering you're facing, humble yourself, face it with God, give up your own self-interest, act in faithfulness to him with love for others, and you can receive the benefit of the transformation of the Holy Spirit.
Yep. Yep. Do you have an opportunity while you're in federal prison to just share the gospel with somebody who just didn't know it?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly did as much as I could. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, like, did I do any good?
No. Right. I get that.
But like one of the things that I certainly was able to do is very quickly, there was kind of like in your cell, the guards have to to maintain order in the prison. They kind of let inmates have a level of autonomy and authority over certain parts so that they just don't have to micromanage everything. So
sure.
The way we worked at FMC Rochester, the prison I was at, was the most senior guy in a cell got to be in charge of who was in charge of that. That was just kind of the agreement within the inmates. So whoever had been there the longest got to be in charge. And so by sort of an accident of people moving around and stuff, within like a month of being there, I had become the most senior guy in my cell. So what I took that as
like a union job, seniority first.
Exactly. I mean, and so I took responsibility, okay, God is a God of peace.
Yeah.
And if I have authority here, I have the ability to enforce peace. So I prayed and I would read my Bible in there, and I just created a little bubble of God's kingdom. And the guys that came in and out, everybody benefited from it, right? A prison is an awful place. It's a dog eat dog world. You always have to be watching your own back. You have to whatever. But so when a guy could walk into my cell and be like, oh, this guy's not trying to take advantage of me. And so Christ's light shined in that cell for sure. I had a bunch of different people come in. I had a J6er come in he's just been through so much worse story than me. Ron Maccabee, look him up. He's just, but a faithful man, just persevering, didn't give up. I mean, really so unjustly treated. And they had arrested him like the day of or soon after January 6th and threw him in what they called the DC Gulag, which is the county jail in Washington, D.C. And he just had to rot in there for years. And just he's a sheriff's deputy from Georgia. I mean, I think he grew up in Tennessee or something, but just a really good guy. But he had just been through the ringer. But when he got transferred to my prison, we found out who each other were. He got moved into my cell, and I was able to give him a little bit of peace, at least a slice of peace in his life.
Yeah.
And so that was a responsibility that I took to offer God's kingdom. And then, I talk to people all the time about, you can't separate me from God. Like my life, every conversation leads back to God. So when you have lots of extended time with these guys, you talk about it all the time. And, I don't know, I am confident that my presence there, I bore good fruit, the fruit of the Holy Spirit, love, peace, joy, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, those sorts of things. Those were produced in me and my character. And I believe in especially the men that were in my cell, at least there was a measure of that came out of them through just my presence and really God's presence expressed through me.
And I'm not I don't want to create ill where there isn't any in your heart, because I would imagine going through something like that, the grace of God is pretty mighty. Mm-hmm. And I know about me, just in regular life, every now and then I have to rein in where I find out that my my mind, my heart, my thoughts are bearing up anger, resentment. Like it'll try to come back. Like I've gone through a forgiveness process,
Yeah.
and it wants to waltz right back through my human door.
Yeah.
And that happens. And I was reading a little bit online here, just talking about your particular case, 5104E. And I'm reading this, and I've begun to read your book,
Mm-hmm.
and was so glad I was able to purchase this at the event a couple Saturdays ago. And it's already captured me, and and just hearing you today. And I'm reading here that it says your affiant submits there is also probably cause to believe that Kelly violated 40 USC dash 5103 goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it gives some of your testimony in here about where you're talking. And just the testimony that's in the FBI documentation file that's right here as a matter of public record. I'm reading that.
Yeah.
And the first part of me goes, if I can just take a minute here, I'm reading your account of what he wrote, you said, and I'm hearing you, and I hear the same man.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I hear the same man that was talking to that FBI agent who's talking right here in our studio. And I sit back and I go, you got to be kidding me. And then you see what's going on up in Minneapolis. And the only thing that I've found out by looking at, reading, just scanning through this legal case here, and the people up there who are screaming out, I got shot, and they're spitting on ICE agents and they're putting out a resistance. The only difference is you were standing on a federal building. And so apparently, if you're respectful, willing to leave when said, what are you doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you stepped into the water. And you've already said, I got it. God's just. I get that.
Yep.
And you were asked to leave. Your still kind demeanor, which existed in the FBI report by his own stinking words here, right? Yeah. And but you did time. You did time for this because you were standing in a building that was politically charged.
Yeah.
And no, that's not justice. No, that's not righteousness. But you do these things because the life of Christ lives in you. You're not spitting anybody, and you're not trying to get shot.
Right.
And you see what's going on in Minneapolis. And I hope for all those who would hear what you're saying today, pay attention to what's going on in places like Minneapolis. Please pay attention. It's the only place it's going on. As if there isn't illegals all over this great nation, including this interesting state right here that we're sitting in.
Right.
And they're acting as if they're getting picked on.
Right.
And the thing that's so disheartening of that is you see those people operate in such severe disrespect. And I'm the first guy to say, hey, you know what? I believe in the Second Amendment for one reason. It's not just to protect me.
Yeah.
Guess what? But you still have to perform a certain way in light of the government.
Yep.
And you perform that way and you paid. Up there, nobody's paying for what's going on. What's the difference? They're on a public space.
Yeah.
Also, maybe property ownership is important.
Yeah.
Maybe that does mean something. Maybe that authorizes me and my own property to have a stronger defensive stance. Yeah. Thanks to all this politics going on there. And so when you share this, would you, and shoot, we could go another hour if you wanted, but I don't want to use up all your time too. This is the book that you've written, Hope from the Ashes of January 6th. When did you go, I think I need to do this? Or have you just been a book writer all your life? You just love to write and write and write. And your favorite thing about homeschooling was all the reporting and all the writing and all the stuff you had to do, because we all love writing.
Yeah, right. People have said that I'm a good writer. I've heard that at different times. Like I have to thank, I had a professor at Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids, Tom J. Ernster, all those years ago. He was such a good teacher. After I took his classes, he taught me to write. I took 3 of his classes, and after I was done with that, I only had to write a first draft for the rest of my college career because I was so good at writing. Oh my gosh. I hated him for it, but I kept coming back to his classes because but anyway, what brought me to write this story is I've always been a reader, so I respect authors, and I love the storytelling. Yep. And I've had thought of in my mind, maybe I should write sometime. Well, as I was going through the whole story, it started to dawn on me that this isn't necessarily something that I'm going to do just because I want to. This is a story that God's given me, and it's it ought to be told. I now, as an expression of who I am and just the initiation that God's put me through, I think he did it for me for sure, but he also wants to bless other people through it. And like my story can be hope from ashes, beauty from ashes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's, it'd be a lot better for somebody to like walk my journey through the book than to have to go to prison.
Yeah.
You know? So that's kind of what led me to write it. Was like, I felt like this is a story worth telling. It's a story of God overcoming. It's a story, and it's a remembrance of who we are as a nation, that like there is actually a really good hope in America. We're a fantastic place, and it's a great idea. The United States was a great idea.
I wonder if it could be said. I'm going to read some of these chapter titles in here because they in themselves, I believe, are quite inspiring.
Yeah.
It seems to me that as off as this country can become, the simple fact that it's the country that it is because of the founding fathers and the people that they were, the character they walked in, a fundamental belief and respect in the Almighty, in the Lord God. And I recount to people, when they start going, well, it's not so, we'll integrate Sharia law, and I got a Muslim. One of my best friends is my neighbor, and he's a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Sharia doesn't work in this country.
No.
And there wasn't
we wouldn't be this country.
That's right.
We would be something else.
And when people start to argue that and start going, I go, well, and they say, well, constitutionally they have the right to this and this and this. And
you won't have a constitution if
all you have to do is show me the Muslim that signed that constitution. That's all. That's all you have to do. And I'm on board with you. Yep. And all of them go, just with this long face look. I'm just like, just find me the Muslim that signed the Constitution, and I'm on board with you, because you won't find it there. And that's the reason why.
Yep.
So we are the family of God.
Yep.
We are the brethren. And that's different. And that's not anti-Muslim. It's just pro-Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are not antichrist. And the spirit of Antichrist is just rampant. And Jesus said, even now was. And he said that in his own standing at the time before he went to be at the right hand of the Father. He said that the spirit of the Antichrist is coming, and now is, he said. And now it's just exhausted because it gets to roll in such a broad spectrum. But for those of you who get a chance to this, and then when I'm done reading some of these, I want you to say we're the best place they can get that. And I want to encourage people to get a hold of us. You can reach out to us at whitedoveministries.net. You can email us there. We'll get you directed to Leo in regards to this. But listen to it. Here's the table of contents. First, the introduction, Beauty from Ashes. Chapter 1, our foundation, the Declaration of Independence. Chapter 2, my January 6th experience. I'm really looking forward to right when I get there, the details. Chapter 3, the United States, what will heal America? Mm-hmm. Chapter 4, who am I? Mm-hmm. Understanding American identity. This is barely even half of them. Chapter 5, family. Mm-hmm. The foundation that forms us. Bro, you're nailing the big nails that have to come back through the planks in the framing of our lives in this. And I hope that somebody watches this and goes, I need my frame nailed back up. I need to get these nails driven back in. Where am I? I'm rolling around and I don't know, but I want to hear from a man who's been through a struggle, who understands what it is to walk in forgiveness, have to live by the Spirit, not by the flesh, and trust in Jesus when it gets pretty dark, to know that maybe there's some adjustment that has to go on in their personal lives, and go, I need to shore up and come to Jesus. And I don't believe in those, well, they need those come to Jesus moments. No, you need to come to Jesus, because that's the moment of your entire life. Without any sarcasm, there's nothing like that at all. So Hope from the Ashes of January 6th, Leo, the book, where can we direct people?
So go to my website, iowaleo.com. That's where they're available for sale now. I'm working on getting out of Amazon, but I am having such a hard time.
Well, just pray that gets going for you.
They told me I didn't have permission to publish it, so they wouldn't let me sell it there. But I'm
in the world of free speech,
I am the publisher. But so iowaleo.com is where you can get it.
Leo.com.
Yep.
iowaleo.com. You can go there and get that. And folks, if you forgot what that was, reach out to us. We'll get you in contact with Leo in regards to that. Bro, I appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been fun.
This is good stuff. This is good stuff. Now, you mentioned, this is on the side, right? So you mentioned you're starting a podcast now too, yes?
I am, yeah.
Where can people look to be finding that and start following the stuff you have to say?
I'm on YouTube. It's just at Iowa Leo. But the links are to that on the website too. So just go to iowaleo.com. It's all right there.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being here, Lil. This has been fantastic. Look forward to seeing you again and just continuing in this faithful fight the Lord has for us to finish in this race that we want to run all the way to the end.
Amen.
Yes. Mr. Willman, who is faithful, I'm going to put a shout out to Lee from the last Saturday at the Iowa Freedom.
Liberty Fest.
Liberty Fest.
Yes.
Iowa Freedom Liberty Fest.
Yep.
This is my shout out. And Lee, you can thank Mr. Willman for reminding me. My shout out to Lee for all the money we make on this podcast. You are one of my most favorite persons to talk to out there. I'm sure we'll be millionaires someday as a result. That's why we do this. Thanks for shaking my hand, and thanks for having an incredible conversation at the table, Lee. So there's the shout out. Promise to you. Our producer has been extremely faithful in that. Thank you, Mr. Willman. I appreciate it. Hey man, that's good stuff. This is what we got going on for today. You can run that, and we're going to run this one out. And we've got another one in the books here for people to enjoy. And again, you can go to whitedoveministries.net. You can go to YouTube. You can go to Rumble. You can follow us on Rumble there. And actually, as a result of the fest, we're getting to the numbers that we need on Facebook. As a result, all I want to do is be able to pick up this phone right here, be sitting in my car. I hear the news. It upsets me. I pull over. I pull up my phone, and directly on this podcast, you hear me vent. And for some of you, you've heard me vent on my personal, and then we mush it over there. But I need just a few more people to follow us on Facebook on the podcast, and then I can just do it right away. And I promise you, I don't drive while I do it. I'll pull over, and then I'll vent. And there's absolutely, that's the way that's going to go. Thanks for coming again, Leo. God bless you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You bet.
Appreciate it.